Alright, so the last book in my book talk about individuality is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. So this book is set in a futuristic world. Tally Youngblood is the main character, and what happens is in this world you're considered an ugly until you turn 16, and then you get an operation and you become a pretty. And the pretty life is what everyone aspires for. They kind of have all these amenities that the uglies do not have. They get to throw lavish parties all the time. They're all just these beautiful people who think life is better because they're beautiful. And this book follows the journey of Tally, who has to make a really tough decision when her friend Shay runs away, and that decision is either bring Shay back and turn pretty or never turn pretty. And for Tally, that is like the worst case scenario that could have ever have happened. Her entire life, all she's looked towards is becoming a pretty, and all, being treated better because she is a pretty and having boys fall in love with her. Tally Youngblood, the main character, all she wants is to turn pretty, like I said. Her friend Shay, she's a rebel. She hates everything that comes along with turning pretty. She doesn't want it at all. She despises everything and anything about it. Paris, he used to be Tally's best friend, and then he turns pretty and just kind of drops Tally because she's an ugly, and the social status of being a pretty, you can only be friends with pretties. David is born into a world where being pretty was never an option. He's kind of in this remote area called the Smoke that is a big part of the book, but I'm not going to tell you about it because it'll give it away. And then his parents, Maddie and Az, they were doctors who used to turn people into pretties, and then they ran away, and all of the repercussions that came along with that were very hard on them and kind of caused a lot of trouble for them. And then lastly, Dr. Cable, she's in charge of special circumstances, which basically means she is trying to ruin Tally's life. She's blackmailing her and making sure, you find Shay or you don't turn pretty. She's the deciding factor of that. My favorite quote from the book is, "So what if people look more alike now? It's the only way to make people equal." I really, really like this quote because it expresses individuality, because oftentimes people are automatically judged or looked down upon for the way they look, which is something we can't help. And making everybody look the same would ideally create an equal playing field for everyone, but I still don't think that would be possible. But I really think that this quote also goes along with the fact of history repeats itself. It's showing that even now this is happening, and in a futuristic world that Scott Westerfeld created, this is still a problem, and people are still being looked down upon for their individuality, which is, Shay is my personal favorite character because she really may not understand that she's speaking out about being an individual and fighting against the pretties because she wants to be who she is, but that ultimately is what she's doing even if she doesn't realize it. I chose to read this book because I read it when I was younger and I absolutely loved it. It's part of a series, and it's really cool to see the development of the characters throughout the three books. I didn't understand that it was a book about individuality because when I was younger I wasn't really looking into books and developing them and thinking critically about them, but this book really reminds me of that it's okay to be who I am, and I shouldn't have to change to impress other people or try to live up to a social status, or people will only be my friend because I look a certain way. And I think that's something that you can really talk to the students about. Since this book is older and talks about tougher topics, I said it would be good for 6th to 12th grade. Really, it's a very long chapter book, but it's worth the read 100%, and it allows students to understand and accept their individuality, and it's a really great book for students who are struggling with the way they look and the things they cannot change about themselves, because it opens up that window, mirror, and door to say, you know what, it's okay to be who you are. Even, yeah, we're not in a futuristic world, but there's still operations that you can get to make you prettier or live up to the standard of society that society pushes on us. I would recommend this book to middle school to high school age students. It's something that's phenomenal. If they like sci-fi books, it lends itself towards that, but it has a really great underlying message, and Scott Westerfeld is an amazing author who really just, I think, does this book fantastic, and for that reason I give the book a 5 out of 5. It's a way to express individuality in a way that I've never read about. I've never read about a book where people can just get an operation and automatically become pretty and it changes their entire life. They look completely different, yet they still look the same, which is something that is a big topic throughout the book and kind of creepy if you think about it in a way. I was hooked from the first chapter, and I had such a hard time putting this down, even the second time reading it around. I think it would be a really great way to relate tough topics and discussions back to our society for older students. And some ways to do that are the discussion prompts, which would be, do you see anything in this book that reminds you of society now? Why do you think everyone is obsessed with being pretty? When Shay was first introduced, did you understand her feelings towards becoming pretty? Because, everybody wants to do it, so why doesn't Shay? What do you think is going to happen in the next book? And did the ending of this book surprise you? Why or why not? Lastly, do you think Scott Westerfeld meant to include comparisons to our society that he did in the text? Because for me, it's insane how similar these topics are to what's going on in the world now, and I think that's a great thing to hit on with the students. Lastly, I think this book needs to be in a future classroom. It's going to be in mine. I think it should be in other future classrooms because it allows students to really express individuality, think about it in a tougher way, view it from all of the lenses that we've talked about, have that window, mirror, and door aspect of this book, and kind of fall in love with the text like I did and continue reading the series. It's a fantastic book to talk about individuality, and if you haven't read it and you don't want to read it to your classroom, just read it on your own time because it's such a great book.